All right, let's talk about 2026. Are you feeling tired of just dreaming about a better life? Ready to actually start building it? Good, because that's exactly what we're going to do. We're laying out a plan that's all about intentional growth, not just, wishful thinking. So let's dive in. And this quote, this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? If you've ever felt like you're just living on autopilot, kind of going through the motions, craving a little more direction, a little more consistency, and honestly, a little more peace while you're working on your goals, then yeah, you are in exactly the right place. So that's our first big topic, moving from autopilot to purpose. We've got to face that feeling of being stuck head on. We need to figure out how we can consciously, shift gears and start moving toward a life that's actually lived on purpose. I mean, have you ever done this? You write down all these goals, they look great on paper, but they just don't stick. We've all been there, right? You start the year with all this amazing energy, you write down these perfect resolutions, and then February rolls around and poof, they've just kind of vanished. It's such a common experience, and it really points to something bigger going on. And this right here, this is what I call the planning gap. It illustrates the problem perfectly. See, on one side, you've got wanting better. That's all the passive dreaming, the vague goals like, I want to be healthier. But on the other side, that's planning for better. And that is where we want to live. It's about intentional action, about having a clear purpose. It's the difference between wishing for something and actually building the bridge to get there. So this is the year we move differently. That's the big idea. It's a conscious choice. We're deciding to leave that messy, chaotic path of old habits behind us. Instead, we're stepping onto a clearer, more direct, and way more purposeful road. It's a total shift in how we approach things. Okay, so we're talking about this new path, this new way of moving, but what does it even mean to be intentional? Let's break that down. Let's talk about the art of intention. Here's the definition we're working with. To grow with intention, it's not some passive thing that just happens to you. It's an active practice. It's about the small, conscious choices you're making every single day. It's about choosing growth when comfort feels so much easier. It's about choosing your own purpose over the pressure to do what everyone else wants. And man, it's about choosing discipline over the 1,000,001 distractions that are always pulling at you. But here's the really cool part, the goal of all of this intention. It's not just about getting more stuff done or ticking boxes. It's about something deeper. It's about becoming more present right here, right now, feeling more grounded, more stable. It's about making sure your actions actually line up with the person you want to become. And this one is so important. It's about finding peace while you're doing the work, not just waiting for some future finish line. All right, so that brings us to the really practical part. We've covered the what and the why, so now it's time for the how. Let's get into the actual framework, your growth plan for 2026. But before we get to the steps, I really want you to hear this. 2026 doesn't need a whole new you. It doesn't. This isn't about throwing out everything and starting from scratch. It's just about taking the person you already are and becoming a more focused, more intentional version of yourself. And here's the framework to do it. It's really simple. It all comes down to these 3 questions. Seriously, if you can answer these honestly, you'll have a plan that actually works. So let's go through them one by one. Okay, step 1. This first question is a huge shift in thinking. Instead of just focusing on what you want to achieve, like save $10,000, it asks you to think about who you want to become. See the difference? Maybe you want to become someone who is disciplined with their money, or someone who is deeply consistent. When you start with the who, it's way more powerful than just chasing a number on a spreadsheet. All right, step 2 is about getting specific. Where are you actually going to apply this intention? And look, you don't have to change your entire life overnight. That's a recipe for burnout. Just pick a few key areas where it'll make the biggest difference. Maybe it's your spending or your morning routine. Maybe it's how you communicate in your relationships. Focus your energy there first. And finally, step 3. This is where the rubber meets the road. Because let's be real, a goal without a process is just a wish. So you have to ask, how am I going to stay consistent? What's the system? What are the habits? Think of consistency as the engine that drives your growth. You absolutely have to have a plan for it. So you've got the framework now, the free questions. But what does this all look like in the real world? Let's talk about the journey ahead and some of the areas where this really comes to life. Yeah, this path forward covers all the important stuff. We're talking about building wealth, but also the discipline to handle it. We're talking about creating habits that actually stick, how to stay consistent with your purpose when things get messy, and maybe most importantly, we're talking about giving yourself some grace along the way, because this is a journey, not a test you have to ace. And I want this to be the thought that really sticks with you. Growth doesn't happen by accident. It just doesn't. Real, meaningful growth is the result of a choice, a deliberate action. It happens when you decide to grow with intention. So, as we finish up here, I'm going to turn this right back to you. After all this, what's the one thing? What's the very first, maybe even tiny, intentional step you're going to take? Just one. Think about it. Maybe write it down. But whatever you do, go take that step. Thanks for being here.